After years, 2 decades, of murdering alleged criminals as mayor of Davao, it became clear to him that this political strategy could be leveraged for higher office and for more power, the presidency. And that is exactly what he did. During his campaign to be president, Mr. Duterte expressly promised many times that he would kill criminals if elected. He claimed that Davao was Exhibit A in why he should be elected, and he pledged that if he won, he would expand the killings nationwide. He won, and that is what he did. And as you will hear tomorrow from Mr. Jeremy and Ms. Croft, the murders skyrocketed in the months immediately after Mr. Duterte became president in June 2016. And that was no coincidence. That was him fulfilling his campaign pledge. As president, he murdered thousands using many of the same co-perpetrators and methods from his time as mayor of Davao. So he moved the method and some of the co-perpetrators to Manila in order to expand the crimes. The victims in this case ranged from powerful individuals to predominantly the poorest citizens of the Philippines. Now, why were the poor selected and victimized? Well, it was often because they were the most vulnerable, and they didn't have the families and the power to make police reports, and they were the most afraid. Mr. Duterte boasted about the killings that resulted in thousands of deaths at his order, and not once at any time has he shown any remorse. He promised also, you will hear, to take responsibility, personal responsibility, for the killings, if need be. Well, that time has come. We are confident that if your honors confirm the charges in this case, that we will prevail and Mr. Duterte will be convicted at trial. We talk a little bit about what my friend, one of the things he said during his 30 minutes. In our presentation today, you will hear Mr. Duterte, in his own words, calling for killings, bragging about killings, and as I said, vowing to take responsibility for those killings if necessary. And the defense, I have in my outline, may claim, but they already have, the defense claimed that this is hyperbole, bluster, exaggeration, part of his blunt or direct strongman political speech, which had brought him political success in Davao and then nationwide. And the defense will also point your honors to many instances where Mr. Duterte and his allies tried to build a veneer, a kind of fig leaf of plausible deniability by sprinkling in references to the effect that the police should only shoot to kill in self-defense. Those references to self-defense appear throughout Mr. Duterte's speeches. They're all over the place. We don't run away from that. We don't shy away from that. That's part of our theory. So the defense will say, and again, they already have, that we've cherry-picked the statements we show you, but we have not. We acknowledge these many references to self-defense in Mr. Duterte's speeches. But the evidence which is in our pre-confirmation brief, and some of which will lead today, overwhelmingly shows that those references to self-defense and following the law and to due process are nothing but nonsense. Keep in mind, as mayor, he created a death squad, a leader who creates, leads, arms, and funds a death squad is not interested in due process or following the law. Those empty utterances were simply Mr. Duterte, who's chosen not to be here today. Those were simply him acting as the former prosecutor, trying to build in some semblance of a defense, preparing for the day, should it ever come, as it now has, that he would be held to account. It was to give his lawyers something to say. But look at it over here, where I said don't shoot except in self-defense. The reality is that Mr. Duterte's message was clear, and it was understood by the perpetrators, and it was followed. That message was, commit murder at my direction, and I will protect you, I will pay you, I will promote you. And that's what happened. And I'll say this as well, Your Honors. For purposes of this confirmation hearing, disregard every speech ever made by Mr. Duterte. Throw them all out. There is still ample evidence of substantial grounds based on the other evidence which we have put on our list of evidence. And the evidence as a whole, when you weigh it together, will show that what my friend said is not correct, that Mr. Duterte intended for his subordinates to follow the law, and that he was interested and that his speeches were simply bluster. I'll talk briefly now about the charges in the case. As the deputy prosecutor stated, we have 49 incidents totaling 76 murder victims and 2 victims of attempted murder. And of course, those are expanded upon in our pretrial brief, or PCB. Now, as my friends said in the LRV, while there are countless victims who've experienced harm as a result of Mr. Duterte's crimes, we have focused the charges in this case to these 49 incidents and these number of victims in order to ensure that this trial can be expeditious and that it can be efficient and that it won't go on for years and years. So these charged murders are emblematic. They're representative of Mr. Duterte's larger killing campaign. I was going to talk about the legal standard for today, but Your Honors explained it extremely clearly in the beginning of the introduction, so I won't go into it, other than to say, of course, the standard we have to meet is substantial grounds, which I am confident we will. The only thing I would add is that this stage of the proceedings, in addition to not being a mini trial or a trial before a trial, it's also not the time for the chamber to in-depth determine the credibility of witnesses. That can only properly be addressed at trial by the trial chamber when the witnesses are called to testify before the judges and their evidence is properly tested. And there I would point, Your Honors, to the Said confirmation decision, 9 December 2021, at paragraph 39. I'll move on now. We can go to the next slide, James. I'll talk a little bit about Mr. Duterte's background. He was born on the 28th of March, 1945, and he prides himself, or portrays himself at least, as someone who understands the problems of the poor. But as my friend stated, he actually comes from a very privileged family. His father was a lawyer, a politician, even a provincial governor. And as a young man, Mr. Duterte became a lawyer. He went to law school, practiced as a prosecutor in Davao City for almost a decade, from 1977 to 1986. And you find that in our pre-confirmation brief at paragraph 2. While he was a prosecutor, excuse me, he taught criminal law and procedure to police officers in Davao City. And despite this privileged background, despite his deep familiarity with the law and criminal law, Mr. Duterte embraced criminality from the beginning of his career. It's just one example. As a prosecutor, the evidence shows he taught police officers to plant evidence. We can go to the next slide, please, James. I won't read the whole slide out, Your Honors. This is tab 57, PHL OTP 000-15506 R01. But this witness with direct knowledge stated, quote, "He's like planting of evidence. It is necessary," and the he is Duterte. He called it necessary evil. So they said that there are times in police work that you have to do the necessary evil for the sake of the common good, end quote. And I think you'll see, Your Honors, that that's a theme that runs through Mr. Duterte's career. He's willing to do whatever he considers the necessary evil, either for the common good or for his political advancement, or both. And Mr. Duterte confirmed years later, in 2024, when being questioned under oath during a hearing in the Philippines House of Representatives, that planting evidence was his strategy as mayor. Now, at first he denied it in this hearing, but then he admitted to planting evidence in this exchange. If we can go to the next slide. This is tab 46.1, Your Honors. Chairperson, quote, so you really did plant evidence. Mr. Duterte's answer, well, that was part of the strategy as a mayor and as a leader of the law enforcement agency in the city, end quote. His privilege, his legal background makes this betrayal of the law and embrace of murder even more inexcusable. He knew, as a lawyer, as a former prosecutor, that his so-called crackdown on crime was a criminal attack on civilians of the Philippines. And overwhelmingly, the evidence shows, on poor civilians. The poorest of the poor were his victims. He knew his conduct, at its core, was criminal. And not only did Mr. Duterte clearly intend his criminality, he openly bragged about it. Right up until his arrest, and we'll get to that later, but right up until his arrest, he bragged about it. He thrives on a tough guy persona or image that he's tried to create for himself. My friend talked about him riding motorcycles. Well, one example I'll show you is from 2007 now, if we could play that, James. And I should say this is tab 18.
Elite, never losing an election.
So, riding a Harley Davidson, shooting a semi-automatic pistol. This is the image he's trying to create from the beginning. He likes to pose with weapons. If we can go to the next one, James. This is tab 80. And here in this photo, which was published in a newspaper, you can see Mr. Duterte holding an assault rifle. And I'll just note that we also see in this photo, to the immediate left of the photo, Ronald Bato de la Rosa. Bato is the nickname. And to Mr. Duterte's immediate right, Isidro La Peña. And we'll hear more about them later. Even days before he was arrested, 3 days before he was transferred to The Hague, this tough guy persona was on display again during a speech in Hong Kong. He brushed off the possibility of an ICC arrest warrant, and he referred to the ICC, quote, as motherfuckers who have been after him for a long time, end quote. This is him on March 9th, 2025. If you could play that, James. This is tab 136.
Sa totoo lang, baka ang balita ko may warrant daw ako pag... Hindi, totoo. Yung sa ICC or something. Matagal na akong hinahabol ng mga
That's him 3 days before coming to The Hague. Of course, after arriving in the Hague, his lawyers very soon began arguing that Mr. Duterte was not fit enough for these proceedings. He wasn't physically or mentally fit enough to be put on trial or for his charges to be confirmed. But fortunately, a panel of 3 medical experts that Your Honors appointed found unanimously that he is. The point is that despite what the defense may say, here or to the press, Mr. Duterte is perfectly fine. He's able to attend the proceedings today. There is nothing stopping him except that he doesn't want to be here. He chose not to face the court, not to face the victims. There is no reason for him not to be here other than his request and choice. I'll move on now briefly to his time as mayor in Davao, Your Honors. If we can quickly bring up the map, James. There we see Davao in the south. We can zoom in. I don't think there's any dispute where Davao is. He was first elected mayor of Davao City in 1988 and served as mayor for more than 20 years, between 88 and 2016. And as the deputy prosecutor has noted, jurisdiction for this case is 1st November 2011 to 16 March 2019. We're limited to that jurisdiction. So that is the period we will concentrate on today, although, of course, before and after may be relevant. As mayor of Davao, Mr. Duterte promised a crackdown on crime. To quote, crackdown, end quote, on crime and drugs, Mr. Duterte created liquidation squads, death squads, made up both of Davao City police officers as well as non-police officers who were essentially hired hitmen, hired killers. And this system of his became known as the Davao model. The Davao model was murder, not being tough on crime legally, as my friend said. And you have to think, it's a little strange cracking down on crime by committing the crime of murder. Of course, Mr. Duterte did not commit these crimes alone. We discussed the co-perpetrators, including during the mayoral period, in our pre-confirmation brief, Your Honors. And you'll find that at paragraphs 8 to 23. I'll talk about just a few of them now, just to introduce them. First, if we go to the slide, thank you. Ronald Bato de la Rosa, who was a chief of the Davao City Police Office, or DCPO, from 2012 to 2013. Next, Vicente Danao, another police chief in Davao during the period. Next, Christopher Bong Go, who was Mr. Duterte's aide, special assistant, and important advisor from 1998 to 2016 for the Davao period, and then continued later in the presidency. Mr. Dante Guiaran, regional director of the National Bureau of Investigation. And finally, Italiano Aguirre, who is a lawyer for Mr. Duterte and for some of the DDS members during the mayoral period. And Ms. Croft will discuss these co-perpetrators and their roles in more depth in her presentation, which will be tomorrow. Let me talk now a little bit about the structure of the Davao Death Squad, or DDS. And as we say in our brief, it's a pyramidal structure. If we go, James, to the next one. Again, this colloquially became known as the Davao Death Squad, and it had a hierarchical pyramid-like structure. At the very top, as mayor, Rodrigo Duterte. And as mayor, he had, of course, de jure control over the Davao police. And the evidence shows, para 34, we talk about this in our brief, he also had de facto control. Under him were co-perpetrators, some of whom I have mentioned. The co-perpetrators had different roles, but one of them was to relay orders and instructions down from Mr. Duterte to the DDS handlers, and also to relay reports back up to Mr. Duterte. So a typical chain of command. The instructions go down, the reports go up. And the handlers were responsible for the different death squads, or DDS members. And at the very bottom, the lowest rung, the DDS members who actually perpetrated the killings, who carried out physically the murders. And they were made up of both police officers, who were generally lower level police officers, as well as non-police persons who were hired. These members at the bottom were often recruited because they had a debt or owed something to Mr. Duterte or the police, and they could therefore be controlled. And those members at the very bottom were at risk themselves, because if they did not follow orders, or if they tried to leave the DDS, they could be tortured or killed, or both. And there is evidence of that in this case. I'll talk now just for a few moments about the founding of the DDS, Duterte's death squad, the genesis of the death squads. One witness described his initiation into the DDS. He described it happening in 1988 at a dinner meeting in a hotel in Davao City. And this was a huge deal for this witness. I mean, it was almost unimaginable being invited to a dinner in a hotel in the center of Davao where he was going to meet the mayor. Mr. Duterte was present, and he openly told the new members of the death squad he was forming that their job was to kill criminals. If we can go to the next slide, James. This is tab 50, Your Honors. This is what the witness recalls of the meeting. Quote, he, Duterte, told us that your job here in the city would be to kill the drug pushers, the snatchers, and the holduppers. That's what our job is going to be, end quote. And in private, with his paid killers, Mr. Duterte didn't say anything about self-defense. He then provided these death squad members with guns and ammunition, and again, in a festive way, a basket was passed around filled with handguns, and the new members could pull one out, like getting a prize, so they would each have a weapon for their new job. It was a celebratory event for Mr. Duterte. The witness explained Mr. Duterte was happy at this dinner meeting. He was laughing, and he even sprayed a bottle of champagne to celebrate. That's at para 5 for our PCB. One witness recalls, we can go to the next slide, James, thank you. Recalled of this event, quote, he, Duterte again, said it was like a baptismal, like a launching. He was very happy at that moment, end quote. That's tab 51. Mr. Duterte was very happy at the birth of the DDS.